Meeple Nation Podcast, episode 508, the top 15 area majority / influence games we do not own.
Welcome, citizens, to Meeple Nation. Grab your favorite beverage, pull up a chair, warm up those dice, and join us at the game table as we discuss board games and the board gaming world. Each week, the hosts of Meeple Nation share their love for board games and the amazing memories that come from playing games with some very outstanding people. Let us now join our hosts in their natural habitat, the game table.
Meeple Nation Podcast is sponsored by GameToppersLLC.com. This is an amazing product that we fully stand behind, next to, with dice in our hand, ready to roll. These Game Toppers enhance every game night, every game, every time. That's GameToppersLLC.com. Go check them out. Buy one for yourself. You will not be disappointed.
And all of the 4.0 Kickstarter stuff is now available, and there's some really cool stuff. New mats, a table for the kids, lots of great things. Definitely go check that out. And after you're done checking out GameToppersLLC.com, head on over to MeepleNation.com, where you can listen to all of our past episodes, check out some photos. There's links to our social accounts. We've got a little bit more information about us, and there's a link to our Patreon. We are always so excited to see new members become patrons of the show. Patrons enable us to enhance the podcast in a whole bunch of different ways, and it's very motivating for us because we're trying to produce some additional bonus content that is rolled out in early access to our patrons, and it's kind of pushing us into experimenting and doing some new stuff, which we keep saying coming soon, TM. Are we going to trademark that statement probably, because we keep saying it? But we are rolling out some additional stuff. It's just slow because we want to do it right. But we love our patrons. We would love it if you went and checked out that link to see if becoming a patron is right for you. Also, we love to just hear from you. So if you have a question, comment, or other grievances, drop us a line at meeplenation@gmail.com. We're always listening. We'd love to hear from you. So please reach out. We are the hosts of Meeple Nation. I'm Douglas Stewart.
And I'm Nathan Howard. So we are at week 6 with Andy and Doug having their face-off. I'm not going to be in the same room with each other, or maybe there could be life circumstances getting in the way. It does feel like you two are fighting, though.
Yeah, it does a little bit, but I assure you, we are not.
Yeah.
We just had a whole host of reasons why we can't be here at the same night, at the same time. They've all fallen in the same period of time. And so, I'm looking forward to getting to know Andy again.
Yeah. I'll introduce you next time I see him.
Yeah, introduce me to your friend Andy sometime, would you?
Sounds like a plan.
He is out with work responsibilities tonight, so we totally get that. It's a busy time for him, and that's priority number 1.
Indeed. It is time for our weekly highlights. I got this newer game it's an older game, 2018, but I got a new game to the table. Got to play it with my wife, and my daughter, and we actually had a ton of fun with this game. Simple game called Lucky Numbers, and depending on the number of players is how many clovers you're going to put out there. You start off the game and you have a 4x4 grid. You get to draw 4 clovers out of the pool and add them to your board. The setup is the lowest number has to go in the top left. The next higher number goes in a diagonal motion, so in cell A2 for those of us Excel junkies, and the next one's going to go in C3, and the next one's going to go in D4. So you have that diagonal line, and they have to, again, be the lowest number, second lowest, third lowest, and the highest number. Now, the gameplay is pretty simple. You're going to draw a tile out of the pool, the shared pool, and then you can add that tile to your board. The placement rules are as follows. You can place it anywhere you want on the board. However, every number to the left of it must be lower than it. Every number to the right of it must be higher than it. Every number above it must be lower than that number. And every number below it must be higher. And so you can't have any equal numbers next to each other, but you can have the same number on multiple spots on your board. But there's quite a bit of challenge to this. And for a very simple game of just drawing numbers and adding them to your board, a lot of fun, a little frustration that comes with it when somebody else keeps taking your stuff. And then also you can take a tile and you can swap one for a 1-for-1, or you can, if you don't want to use a tile, you just discard it face up in the center. So then that does become available for other people to grab. Very simple game, quite a bit of fun. I very much enjoyed it. It was great for the three of us to play. It was great for just my wife and I to play. But that is Lucky Numbers. I would suggest it.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to have you teach me that one sometime. Well, Andy is not the only one who has been incredibly busy with work and other responsibilities. I have also been super busy, and gaming has been really slow for me this week. So thank goodness for BGA.
Happy days.
And the ability to take some turns online from time to time. These are the moments, these are the times when I'm really grateful to have BGA when I can't get stuff to the table, which is always my preference because it still lets me play games and take turns when I do have a spare minute online. The game that I wanted to highlight is Arc Nova. And this has become, I've played way more games of this online versus at the table just because of the convenience and the ability to play it with people online and not being able to get people around the table to play it nearly as much. So I have really, really been loving Arc Nova. Arc Nova, absolutely brilliant game. I'm really looking forward to the new expansion. I haven't had a chance to get that to the table, but even in its base form, Arc Nova is such a fun game. It's got incredible card play. It's got a lot of complexities, a lot of different synergies and strategies you can use to build out your zoo, the cards. Everything about this is something that I really love. I wish that we could get it to the table more often. I've got 3 games of this going on right now, and I've decided that it is too many. Because
there's so much going on.
Yes, because trying to keep track of 3 different games of Arc Nova at the same time is becoming highly problematic. I keep thinking that, oh, this is the strategy I'm going for, and I'll take my turn, and then I'll be like, nope, that was in the other game. I totally just messed up. So as a result, I'm probably going to have 3 very lackluster scores for Arc Nova because I'm trying to play too many at the same time. But it's still just such a fun experience. I love this game. It's one that is quickly climbing the ranks. I think it's one that the community likes quite a bit, and I think it's well-deserved. I think the praise for this is very well-deserved. Arc Nova, fantastic game. Glad I'm able to play it on BGA while things are really busy at work and at home.
That's one of those games that I feel falls right along the lines with Earth. Earth is one that you don't want to have multiple gaming sessions going on because if you do, that review time, what do I got going on? What am I trying to do? It's great to play it online, but I think it's one that you play just one session at a time. I'm glad, Doug, you and I have played Earth quite a bit, and maybe I should relent on my aversion to Arc Nova and allow you to invite me to a game on that.
Yes. Well, okay. We've had this conversation before. I really think we need to get this to the table first and get you to the point where you feel really comfortable at the table before we jump into the online
That's probably good. Because I'm having similar issues with Blood Rage, where I've watched I watched Rodney's video and
I'm confused. And I love Blood Rage. I know how to play Blood Rage, but even I'm confused by some of the implementation stuff. Just how it sort of shows and depicts what you're doing and everything. It's all good. It works, but it's such a deviation from the game at the table that I can totally see that sort of confusion and frustration. But I think if you are really familiar with something at the table and you know, like you really understand the mechanisms of something, then it's easier to sort of make those leaps at how they've decided to graphically show the information on the online version.
Yeah, I think that case in point is Planet Unknown.
Yeah.
And which I think there's a little bit of issues implementation of the Lazy Susan in that game.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if it's like setup options or something like that, because it just automatically spins the Lazy Susan and gives you your choice. It doesn't let you pick where you want to spin it when it's your turn. So that implementation is a little bit problematic. However, because we know how to play it at the table,
it's not an end.
Yeah, you know exactly how it's played. For the implementation, it works really great.
Excellent. So let's take a stroll down Email Avenue. Sit down with a note from our friend Salvatore. Salvatore sends us a question each week. We very much enjoy those. If you want to reach out to us, please feel free to reach out to us at meeplenation@gmail.com. We're going to jump to Salvatore's question this week. My question to Meeple Nation this week is about board gaming component upgrades. I would prefer to spend money on component upgrades of my favorite games than spend cash on new games. But I'm
Here.
Yeah, but I am very picky about my upgrades. They have to make the gaming experience qualitatively better for me and preferably be more durable than the base game components.
Also, here.
Yeah. An easy question to ask a gamer is generally what their favorite upgrades are. Some of us prefer metal coins, miniatures, or screen-painted tokens. There are dozens of aftermarket options for these upgrades, and some companies make them a cottage industry. My favorite upgrade, by far, is plastic PVC cards.
Yes.
Only a small handful of deluxe editions come with PVC cards, and yet I think they would be perfect for a myriad of different evergreen games with lots of shuffling and exceptional artwork.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I have the super deluxe edition of Radlands, one of your favorite games, Doug.
Yep. Same edition I have.
Which my wife and I play often. The PVC cards are further reinforced by Ultra Pro Platinum 115 micron card sleeves. These cards can survive a 500 megaton bomb direct hit and will never have to replace them.
Now, this is where I'm going to take slight issue here because I see absolutely zero reason on the planet to sleeve a PVC card. And I like card sleeves. I'm a card sleeve. I'm not an excessive card sleever. I understand the reason for card sleeves. I have never put a sleeve on a PVC card. So that's interesting. I don't know anyone who does. That's interesting. I'm not saying he shouldn't do that, but I have never put a sleeve on a PVC card before.
I don't think I've ever played a game with a PVC card.
Well, they're not super common. So Radlands has it. Too Many Bones is all PVC cards. I mean, they're plastic. You can throw them. The whole idea is like you could pour water on them, right? You could play them underwater and it won't do any damage. It's a plastic card.
That's awesome. The other end of the durability spectrum is Lost Cities. My wife and I play this classic game regularly, and the card quality is quite poor.
Can confirm.
Yeah. My wife and I play this game a ton on BGA, and it's a great implementation on BGA. Another one that she mops the floor with me. But anyways, we have the card protected by 100 micron sleeves, and we still are replacing the sleeves constantly due to frequent heavy shuffling. I ran into this issue with Dominion.
Sure.
I mean, we were playing Dominion all the time. Even the Upper Deck Marvel deck building game ran into that same issue. And so as a result, I ended up packing in the box extra sleeves because they're going to get torn. They're going to wear out, and just to always have those sleeves there. But going back to Salvatore, if not for card sleeves, we'd probably have to buy a new copy of this game once a month. So it sounds like he plays that just as much as he plays Seven Wonders Duel. This evergreen title is screaming for PVC plastic cards. But alas, like so many other games, they are not available. My question to Meeple Nation this week is, what is your favorite type of board game upgrade that you think our hobby needs more of that is currently being underutilized and underproduced?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, actually. So, a few things. I totally get, like, if you've got a game that you are playing a lot, like Lost Cities, I actually think that would be awesome if they made like a PVC version of those cards that wouldn't wear out so quick. The common argument that people make who are not sleevers, the sort of anti-sleeving crowd, the common argument that they make is if you are playing a game so much that you are wearing it out, that means you are getting incredible value for that game, meaning that replacing the game should be a joy to you because you get to support the people who are making the game, support the publisher, support the designers, support the artists behind
Until
the game.
It's unavailable.
Exactly. And that's where the problem comes in. If all these games were always available, I could actually see some logic to that.
Absolutely.
And especially with a smaller game like Lost Cities, this is a very inexpensive game, doesn't cost a lot. You play it. I don't know about replacing it once a month. I think there might be some hyperbole there. But even if you're buying a new copy of this once a year, okay, you're supporting a game and a developer, publisher, whatever, that has made something that you thoroughly enjoy. Now, that's the argument of the anti-sleeving crowd. The reality of the situation is some of us really don't want to have to track down these games multiple times.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times the games we buy are Kickstarters or they have exclusive content. They have content in them that we want to protect stuff and make sure that it's, going to last and hold up against the test of time, so to speak, right?
Preach on, Doug.
Right. Like if you're shuffling those cards a lot, you need to protect them.
Hallelujah.
Even things like, okay. Thank you, Nathan. Are you feeling it? Are we feeling it in here? Okay. So, and for me, I am not an excessive sleever. I will usually look at cards and I will say, okay, are these cards going to get shuffled a bunch of times? If they are, I will put some good sleeves on them. If they're not, I don't bother. There's no reason to sleeve them.
I'm the
However,
same boat.
okay, but then you have things like, what about tiles that like in games that make like maps, right? For example, ether fields, right? Where you're building out the map of these like tiled cards, or think Seventh Continent, right? The issue there becomes what's going to be put on them, right? So some of these games, you don't necessarily need to sleeve those. However, if they're forming the map and you're going to have a ton of components on there, maybe even metal miniatures that have, bases that could scratch the cards or scuff them up in some way. I mean, it kind of makes sense to sleeve. So I think you take it on a game by game basis. You need to noodle out and have some common sense when it comes to sleeving stuff. I'm not an advocate of just, I've got a new game, I've got to have sleeves, I'm going to throw sleeves on it. I also think that there is something really important to be said about the quality of the sleeves that you're putting on. Right.
100%.
So one of the things that Salvatore mentions in here is that they keep replacing all of these sleeves because the sleeves are getting worn out. And I have no idea what sleeves he's putting on these, but go buy better sleeves. If you are literally playing a game so much that you're wearing out the sleeves, go get some dragon shields or something that'll give you the test of time. Some of the sleeves that they make are good enough that they are as good, if not better, than PVC quality cards, if you get the right quality of sleeve. I run into this problem all the time. So for example, you had mentioned Dominion, right? Mm-hmm. And you sleeved that game and you had, I don't know what sleeves you were putting on it.
Sleeves.
Yeah. Okay. You play a game or two with the penny sleeves on them. All of those sleeves start to wear out and they stick.
Yeah.
They stick together. They're awful. I hate that. And I can see why people, if you've played a game with those types of sleeves on the cards and you're not much of a sleever, that's only going to reinforce your belief that cards should not be sleeved because they do not hold up well. And so if you're constantly throwing penny sleeves on and off of cards, my goodness, throw them away and put a high quality sleeve on there. It's worth the money. High quality sleeves definitely cost more. There's no doubt about that. But if you're playing a game that much, protect it the proper way and move on.
So I think going back to the crux of his question, what is your favorite type of board game upgrades that you think our hobby needs more of, or that is currently being underutilized and underproduced?
Are you trying to tell me that I wasn't answering the question?
No. I'm going off of what my answer is going to be. I look at Quacks of Quedlinburg. The BGG Geek Store has those plastic tokens that you can read, that you can use as upgrades. Huge improvement. And also I look at containers that we can put in games to store stuff. So games like, going back to Quacks of Quedlinburg again, where the Geek Store has containers for each one of the resources that you can put them in. And on top of that, those boxes have dividers in it, so you can separate your 1s, your 3s, and your 5s. And being able to find ways to store those things individually in the box to protect them. So I got the chance recently to play Star Wars Rebellion twice. So I played it once with Andy and I played it once with Greg. And the thing I did is, for a long time, I had all the little pieces in baggies and they get buggered up in the box. And so I had a cheap plastic stackable containers that I could put each individual piece in. And I was able to find something in the office supply section of the store that had little, they look like little tiny crates. They're maybe 2 inches by 3 inches. And the lid can kind of snap on, has little arms that snap on the side. And they stack perfectly in the box. And they come in some different sizes. There's a little bit bigger ones. And the brand on these is Pen Gear. So if you're looking for them anywhere, I think they're great little boxes to store game pieces in, and they stack well in the box. I think being able to store stuff, I used to be real big into inserts and buying stuff for game inserts. And I think there's still a place for those in some games, but I think they get to the point where it makes too much going on inside the box. And so for me, it's easier to, I'll throw away most inserts and just kind of dump everything in baggies in there, which I know makes a lot of people cringe, but yeah, for me, it's just, it's quickness, right? Being able to get those out. And I know some of those inserts, like I look back at the insert that I had for Gloomhaven, which was really nice to be able to have all those places to store all the beasts, all the monsters. But then I also look at games like Star Wars Imperial Assault, where I ended up buying a Plano tackle box. and throwing all the cardboard away, and then finding gallon-sized bags to store my my map tiles in so that I can identify them and find them easier. All too often, we find in those games that there's difficulty of getting the game out into the table. And I think anything
Correct.
that can speed up that process is a huge upgrade for me and something I look forward to.
Yeah, so I'm really glad you brought this up because there were two things that I was going to bring up to answer this question, and that was one of them. First of all, there is so much improvement the industry can make on game inserts in general. Most
Absolutely.
of them get thrown away. We've ranted about this before. It is maddening when an insert has room and slots and it seems to be well thought out for cards and everything like that until you sleeve it.
Yep.
And then nothing fits and you have to toss that out. And the most egregious, right, is when it's like a Kickstarter game or something like that, where they sell you the sleeves that go on the cards, but then there's not room in the box for sleeved cards. You have to come up with some other kind of solution. We've talked about this. It's awful. I would love to see massive improvements to game inserts in the box, but specifically, I am not as concerned with just the organization of the game in the box. That kind of feeds my OCD a little bit, but I ultimately don't really care. I want more and more inserts that come with a thoughtful approach to getting the game from the box to the table really quickly.
Absolutely.
Being able to open the box and just like throw stuff out and it's already in sort of organized bins or containers. It's ready for components to be grabbed. It's ready for stuff to be laid out and played. If you can reduce that setup time, that is a huge barrier to entry. If it can be solved, these games will get to the table far more often and you'll be far more happy about the experience you have getting them to the table. You talk about an underused and underproduced game upgrade that I would love to see more of. Better inserts specifically that help get the game onto the table quick and cleaned up quick. So that's number one. Now the other thing, and I'll just preface this by saying things like sleeves, like I've got that figured out. I know some people struggle with it. I know what cards I want to sleeve. I know what stuff I want to sleeve, and I don't sleeve a lot. I also know some games you can throw a cheaper sleeve on. That's fine. Some you want to put a higher quality sleeve on. The cards will work. It's all good. Things like metal coins, right? It's not always an option. But there's lots of like like you can use metal coins from other games. I mean, go pick up the Scythe coins. Those things work for everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of aftermarket options for that.
Or like a good set of iron clays or something like that, right? You can use other sets if you really like metal coins in your games and you're off to the races. So I think a lot of those problems are fairly easy to solve. One problem that is not easy to solve though is crappy cardboard chits. Yeah. Especially if you are like pulling them from a bag or they're going to get sort of shuffled or mixed up in some way and put in piles. I would love the industry to have more options for good acrylic versions of cardboard chits. So, Quacks of Quedlinburg, great example, right? That acrylic upgrade kit that Geek Store makes is absolutely fantastic. They make another one for Altiplano, which makes Altiplano so much better. Anytime you're drawing cardboard from a bag, having that upgrade is wonderful. My family and I, a while back, we just played Tucana Builders, and it has this massive pile of pieces that you've got to shuffle and put in the middle of the board because everyone on their turn, every time a card slipped over, everyone's going to randomly grab one of those. I mean, those things are going to get worn out. They're already kind of a cheaper quality tile, and they're going to get worn out quick. So having an acrylic alternative for something like that would also be huge. I would really love to see cardboard being replaced. That's a big one for me. So inserts and cardboard replacements, I think, are the big ones for me.
Yeah. And I always think it's a cop out for game designers, game developers, is when they rely on the BGG community to fix those issues.
Right.
To come up with, rule summaries, to come up with, that rule summary is another one that is just, every game should have a rule summary.
Yeah, 100%. And player aids.
Yeah.
It absolutely drives me crazy when a game says 1 to 5 players on the box and it includes 2 player aids.
Yeah.
Which happens more often than you would think. Most of them do a pretty good job, but I still find myself opening games that say, hey, 1 to 5 players, and it's got 1 or maybe 2 player aids in it. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
No, give me a player aid for every player at the table.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's definitely something there as well.
Yeah. We can go on and on. We're starting to go down our hate train of game design issues, but I think just being able to bring out stuff quick and easy, I think that is, for both you and I, Doug, is something that is just above and beyond what our main desire is in any game.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Well, thank you, Salvatore, again for the wonderful thought-provoking question.
All right. We are here to continue our discussion of area majority, area influence games. Now, Doug, you missed our first 2 episodes being you were sick one time and you were out for the other one. So we didn't get your top 5. Do you want to just list those really quick?
Sure. Yeah, I won't dive into them very much, but I was excited to see your list. I think you've got some great games on there. As far as top 5 area majority games, Forests of Pangaea is one that I thoroughly enjoy. The way that you sort of have to expand your plants and trees and grow them and then create these combos is just really fun in that. And the way that you have to kind of control the areas, or the way that you sort of vie for, different spaces on the board is implemented really well. It's super fun. Scarface 1920 was my number 4. I just love it because the area control in it is very much like it's your gang's territory. And there is, you can go to battle, you can fight, but you really feel like you're kind of in the middle of gang wars as you're playing that game. So I really enjoy the way the area majority works in that game. Wonderland's War is my number 3. I love the battle phase of that game. That game is growing. Every time I play it, it increases on my list, my overall top game list. But I love the area majority in there. I love the way the battles play out. I love drawing those acrylic tokens from the bag, and the way that the battles commence, and you've got all those areas that you're trying to fight and control, just works really well. My number 2 is Blood Rage, which I've talked about quite a bit. Fantastic Viking themed game where you're throwing units out there and trying to take control. You're just trying to pillage and grow your clan and everything before Ragnarok hits. Love the implementation there. And then my number 1 is Scythe, which should shock no one because Scythe is just a fantastic game. And I love the way that you have to control those territories, but it isn't always a direct conflict game. Scythe, I think, walks such a great balance between you want to expand, you want to explore, you've got to get your workers out, you've got to take advantage of the different territories and everything, but it's not necessarily a combat-focused game.
Right.
You can do some combat to gain some of the those progress markers on the track or whatever, but you could win this game and not engage in a single combat if you really want to. The way that it's been implemented in Scythe, I think, is really good. Plus, just the overall art style, production, everything else associated with Scythe just works for me. So that was my number 1.
Yeah, that was kind of the point that Andy brought up, is that a lot of these area control games that we do enjoy are not necessarily conflict, take that, but are more of a race to take control of areas.
And I think we, generally speaking, are far more interested in something like that as opposed to just, hey, we're just fighting. We're just fighting for control over the territory.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Doug. That'll come in key when we get to our bonus episode of our area majority showdown.
Can't wait.
In the meantime, we're going to talk about some area majority, influence majority games that we don't own. It's kind of funny, the last little bit, there's been a lot of these games that have come up each time we've talked about these episodes.
Yeah, there's crossover from the last one we did, which was Action Point games.
Yeah. And so the number 1 on the list is Twilight Struggle. Twilight Struggle is a head-to-head epic game going back to the year 2005. Very highly ranked, pretty heavyweight with a 3.61. But the game time of 2 to 3 hours, and I don't know, for me, I can't say that because I just played Star Wars Rebellion, and I think the first one went for 3 hours, and the second one was pretty close to 4 hours.
But that's Star Wars. Twilight Struggle is the Cold War.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
Yeah. I mean, and so a lot of that comes down to that appeal, right? The theme appeal.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think you nailed it, is that just the Cold War theme just doesn't appeal.
Yeah, and not at all to take away from people who love that.
Yep.
This is a well-liked game. It's highly rated, and I totally understand that. Would not take that away from anybody. For me personally, though, the theme doesn't grab me. It's 2-player only, which is always kind of hard to get to the table. It's hard to get a long 2-player game to the table unless it's really good. and has a theme that both players can kind of enjoy and dive into. So yeah, Twilight Struggle is going to be a pass for me for sure.
Yeah. So the next one on the list is Root. What are your feelings on Root, Doug?
Root is a game that I really wanted to like. It's very popular. I tried to play this 3 different times. I will say that the time that I played as the Vagabond was the time that I had the funnest. I thought that was the funnest faction that I played. This game just never really excited me. Every time I tried to play it, it just didn't land. And I found myself, trying to synergize, trying to get into it, trying to understand my faction, trying to play the game the way that it was meant to be played. And what I found is, 20 minutes into it, I was basically just like, I'm looking forward to when this game is over. I'm done already, kind of thing. And I can't necessarily put my finger on it exactly. It's probably just a combination of kind of wildly swinging asymmetric abilities, the art style, all of that. Didn't really grab me or work for me. And it's sometimes you just have a game that is just like that. It just doesn't work, even though it's a popular, well-liked game, for whatever reason, just doesn't land. And this is one of those. It just did not land for me.
I actually enjoy the art style. I actually used to own this game, so it's kind of a cheater on our list. The reason I called this game is because when, a person owns over 1,000 board games, it's really tough to keep all those rules straight.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even say that I know all the rules for the 1,000+ board games that I do have, but Root in particular was such a bear to try to teach.
Yep.
Because if you're going to teach Root, you either need to have somebody who's going to spend the time to research and read over their faction, or I, as the teacher, have to know the factions well enough to be able to say, hey, here's all the nuances of this faction. And with all the games that I own and all the games that I play on a regular basis, that just didn't happen. It just came to the point where that was a game that I would dread teaching.
Sure.
I had it on my 10 for 10 one year, played it 10 times. It was great. Very much enjoyed it. There's a great app out there that you can play as well. If it's a game that you're going to play and you're going to play often and it's one of your go-to games all year long, great. Pick it up. It's going to be a great game for that. But if it's a game that you're going to play once a year, once every other year, it's such a bear to teach and to relearn. And that's the reason that it got cold from my shelf anyway.
Yeah, for sure. It's an interesting game because I think if you just had the core box on your shelf and you just knew how to play those core box factions, I think you'd probably be okay. You could probably keep all that straight and you'd be all right. The issue though is Root has so many expansions, so many additional little packs and modules and everything else at this point that if you own all of it, it really has transcended from being just another like cool game on the shelf into being more of a lifestyle game. And lifestyle games are really hard to get to the table unless, as the name implies,
your lifestyle.
That's your lifestyle game.
Yeah. And the completist in me would not let any game on my shelf be incomplete.
I laugh, but I get it. I totally understand.
So yeah, for me, I mean, I had everything Root and I culled everything Root. So
fantastic. Well, the next one on the list is War of the Ring, 2nd edition. We have talked about this one recently. This for me just falls into the category of game that I would love to play. I just want somebody to teach me. I want somebody who knows the game and can sit down and really walk through how to play the game, the nuance of the game, the strategy of the game. I want somebody to teach it to me so that I can have kind of the best possible experience. It's just not one I want to pick up and try to learn and play on my own.
Yeah. Kind of going along the same lines with having the opportunity this last week to have played and taught Star Wars Rebellion twice. And I actually think I did a much better job with Andy the first time than I did with Greg the second time. But there's a lot of little nuances that are really hard to get across. And if you have somebody who is an outstanding teacher, that can make or break a game so well. I mean, if you have an outstanding teacher, you're going to just love the game. You're going to get all that. Whereas if you have a game where somebody teaches you and then they have well, I can do this. Oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah, well, you should have done that, but I'm not going to let you do it. But yeah, War of the Ring is a cool looking game, but 100% with you that it needs to come with a teacher in the box.
Yes. Now I also have the card game version of this that I'm wanting to get played before I jump into this version of it as well. So that's another kind of thing that holds me back from purchasing this one.
So next on the list is A Game of Thrones, the board game, 2nd edition. Not to take away from anybody, but this theme just doesn't sing to me at all.
No, 100% for me too. I'm not a Game of Thrones person. I couldn't get into the books. I haven't seen any of the TV shows. I know a lot of people like it. It's kind of a global phenomenon in some ways, but I'm just not into it at all. And so this is just a hard pass for me.
Next on the list is a game by Rainier Knizia, which is one of my favorite game designers. Just got an article that says he's designed over 700 games.
Yep. So he is prolific.
He is a knower of things.
Yes.
But anyways, this game actually does look appealing. And if I could find it, I would probably consider picking it up. The issue is it's 1997. And kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier with the kind of the card sleeving is I haven't looked, but I don't know if this game is readily available either.
Yeah. And we didn't mention the name of it, but this is Tigris and Euphrates.
Is that important?
Yeah, I think, well, people might want to know that. Yes. We are talking about Tigris and Euphrates.
Yeah. If I found a copy, I would definitely pick it up.
Yeah, this one is considered one of Rainer Knizia's best games, but I think it is difficult to get your hands on. So I'd play this. I just haven't had an opportunity to yet.
You can buy it retail for $170. So
there you go.
Expensive game.
Wow. $170.
I mean,
only. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I've paid $170 for a game before, but it wasn't this style of game.
Next on the list is Eclipse, Second Dawn for the Galaxy. This is one I would love to try. This is more of an Andy and Nathan style game, so I just keep waiting for you guys to pick it up and introduce it.
It does look like it's more my style.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's just one that I haven't picked up, and I have similar games that are sitting on my shelf that rules haven't been read. Until I get some more of those, that coveted spot on my shelf of shame, my shelves of shame.
Yes, there's more than one.
My closet of shame.
It's quickly turning into a room of shame.
Yeah. I mean, it would look good on my shelf of shame, but the table presence in this game
it's great. It looks
massive.
really good. Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yep.
But I just I need to get some other stuff off the shelf before I can consider picking up something like this. However, if I came across it in a game swap, yeah, I'd totally.
Yes, you would. I know you would. That's awesome. And then the next one, which is number 7 on the list, is War of the Ring. This is just the first edition of War of the Ring that we already talked about. So we can skip over that one. And next on the list is Dominant Species. And I will be honest, this is one I've considered. I've looked at it. This has a 4.04 weight. So this is a heavyweight game that doesn't look very good. And I hate to say that. This is totally me judging it by the aesthetic of its components and everything else. But it's basically kind of this map that just has kind of cubes and cones on it. And it's super heavyweight. And that just is an instant turnoff for me. I'm not averse to playing a heavier weight game, but if I'm going to invest in learning a heavyweight game, I want the experience to be, I want it to blow me away. I want it to have some table presence. I want it to have some cool components at the table. I want it to be, much more than just some hexes with a bunch of cubes and cones.
Yeah. I mean, we just went from Eclipse to this, and you look at the table presence of Eclipse versus the table presence of this. And if these are on tables next to each other, I'm not giving this game a second thought.
You're going to go to Eclipse 100% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And and Eclipse has a 3.66 weight. This has a 4.4 weight. I mean, you would definitely, by looks alone, you would feel like those should be different. But again, you can't ever judge a game by its components. But this is easy to skim over.
Yeah, I definitely get that for sure. Next on the list is Cthulhu Wars. And I'll be totally honest, this is one that actually looks really good. This has incredible table presence, a lot of really fun plastic on the board. Kind of looks like a cool implementation of the Cthulhu theme. I would actually really like to try this. I will tell you though right now, the big thing for me with Cthulhu Wars is just that this is a big, heavy game, and there are like a bajillion things to buy if you wanted to really get into this. And you can't track a lot of them down. It's incredibly expensive just because of the high price tag and large quantity of stuff you would need to buy to play this game. I've just kind of been scared off.
Yeah. That's turned me off from a lot of CMON games.
Yes.
Trying to track down that inventory. It just is, and I already just mentioned the completist in me doesn't like a incomplete game on the shelf. Yeah. For that reason alone, it would not be something I picked up. It's as bad as customizable card games or collectible card games for me. And then I look at the base copy. You can get a copy for $335 new. Yeah, and that's just the base.
Yep. No, if you wanted to collect everything for Cthulhu Wars, you would be in this well over $1,000.
Yeah.
So yeah, that just kind of scares me away. It does look kind of cool though. If somebody had it
really
set up
cool.
and wanted to teach me, at a convention or something like that, I would not say no, but it's definitely not one I'm seeking to go purchase.
So the next one on the list is a great game called Tapestry.
Is it a great game?
It was a great game,
Okay.
but
You did like it.
I did like it, but I did cull it because I didn't like it that much.
Yeah, it's a really great game. I called it because I didn't really like it.
No, I mean, I played it. Dave really loved this game.
Yeah.
I guess it's sad to say, but it's one of those games that Dave kind of broke for me. I'd played several times, and just who you're playing with kind of sometimes affects a game where it just became a negative experience for me.
Interesting. Yeah. And, this is a Stonemaier production, so I knew the game was going to look great and feel great and everything. But for me, it just looked like kind of a race up a bunch of different tracks. And I just, it never really grabbed me gameplay wise. I've never played it. And I kind of have had some people tell me that my suspicions are correct. I've had people say, yeah, that's basically kind of what the game is. And I've even had a few friends that have said like, yeah, it's good for maybe like a game, but then, you're kind of done. So I don't know, having not played it, I could just be getting some bad information. It's just not one that I've ever been very interested in. It just doesn't look like my thing.
Yeah, I think you have gotten some bad information because it is a game that is very well done, and it's not about just racing up some tracks. It's getting those tracks to work together to be able to have cohesivity with them, to be able to climb and advance up them. It's definitely not a one-time play. It's something that if you play it several times, it becomes very strategic for sure, and your gameplay will evolve with it. For me, it was just something that level of investment was not what I wanted to commit. It's not necessarily a lifestyle game, but to do well at the game is something that you're playing on a regular interval. For me, it wasn't going to hit the table as often as it should. So it got cold.
Gotcha. Oh, I was going to mention too. So this game, there was a little bit of, I don't know if controversy is the right word. I guess it kind of is, but there was a little bit of, some buzz that was generated because there was some balancing that had to take place, and they actually had to release some updated information. I think there might have even been some updated components and stuff that got released because of balancing issues with Tapestry, I guess, because there are different factions, correct? As I understand it. There's asymmetric stuff in the game.
There is asymmetric stuff.
Yeah, yes. And I guess some of them were a little imbalanced. Okay, some of them were easier than others, kind of thing.
You're right.
And so if you had a bad combination, it was really easy for a player to exploit some of the faction's abilities or whatever. So that was another thing that I had heard that kind of drew me away from Tapestry. Yeah. But hey, if you ever pick it up again, let me know.
I will.
I'll play it with you. but if you don't, I probably am not going to play Tapestry. Next on the list is Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile. We've talked about this one. We've actually talked about it recently. And ultimately what this comes down to is it looks like a very creative game. It looks like they've had a lot of really cool thought and effort that's gone into the production and design of this game. But it also looks like a heavier game that doesn't necessarily produce the fun factor for the effort to play it.
No, it is a heavier game for sure. This is another one that I also owned and ended up culling. This is very similar to Root with asymmetric powers.
Right. Yep. Same team, right? Yeah. Same art. Yep.
Yep. It is an excellent game, but it is very heavy. 1 to 6 players, which is kind of nice. The playtime isn't bad, 45 to 150 minutes, not end of the world time, but it did have what felt like a lot of downtime between turns for me.
Yeah. Well, and it also had kind of that unique, like, what were they calling it? It was like their chronicle system or whatever. So it was like, it wasn't necessarily a campaign and it wasn't necessarily a legacy game, but after you played it, things would change. And so the next playthrough of the game was different. Is that ringing a bell? Because that's what I've heard.
I didn't play it enough to get that much of a feel to it. So, I mean, I actually honestly only played it the one time.
Okay. So yeah, this was just one of those where I was like, yeah, the juice doesn't seem like it's worth the squeeze for me. That's ultimately what it was.
Yeah. And that came down to me as well. So another one going back to 1995, next on the list is El Grande, a game that I played several times back in the day. Ryan, one of our emeritus hosts of Meeple Nation, this was one of his favorite go-to games. Played it several times with him, and it's actually a really good game.
Yeah, it's ranked 92 on the top, games of all time list from BGG. So this is a very well-liked game. This is one I would like to try. I just haven't had the chance. And
it does have a BGA implementation too, but not one I'm ever going to teach you.
Okay. Well, moving on then, I guess. No, I would be interested, but really more from like the history of board games perspective.
Yeah, no.
Does that make sense? I don't know. It's hard to put my finger on some of these games. There's just not enough there that I'm going to go pursue them to purchase them and add them to my collection. But I would definitely be willing to play them if the time was right, if somebody was teaching that kind of thing. So I know it sounds like a little bit of a broken record with a lot of these games. You keep saying like, well, I'd be interested, if somebody else taught it or, that kind of thing. It's just because the game doesn't meet that threshold in my brain to be like, ooh, I need to go track that down. I need to find it. I need to add it to my collection. I'd like to read the rules. I'd like to be sort of a champion for that game or really check it out, that kind of thing. And a lot of these games on these lists that we do, the ones we don't own, that's just the category they fall into. They just haven't met that threshold. It's hard to define, but they haven't crested that hill, so to speak. And so it's not that I'm against them. I'm not going to be the one to go out and get them, but I would be willing to play them if somebody else had it at the table and it was like, hey, this is what we're playing tonight. I'd be like, oh, cool. El Grande. Awesome.
Yeah. And I think you'd actually really enjoy it. I do like that it has the Grande, the tower that's in there, that you're dumping cubes in there. And then I can't remember the cycle, but when what's in the cubes get revealed and you're trying to track to make sure that you have the most influence in the Grande. I like that mechanic. However, Shogun, which was kind of a similar game, but it also had a tower where you were throwing your workers and stuff in there. But what I liked about that was when you dumped your workers in there, not all of them came out.
Oh,
and
oh no!
And so later,
like by design,
by design. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was
it was random
feature, not a bug. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
And so at another contention point, you could dump more cubes in there, and then random things could come out that throw off everything. So it doesn't.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And it's that little bit of you're trying to influence by what you're putting in there, but what comes out wasn't always what you planned. Kind of like Dead Reckoning, where you dump stuff in, everything comes out in Dead Reckoning, but where it lands is different. El Grande was okay. I didn't enjoy it as much as Ryan did. Ryan really liked that game. And
cool. Well, next on the list is Innis. We have talked about this one before. You and I both played this once. We had our good friend William taught this to us. I liked Innis. I thought it was a good game. It just didn't blow me away.
Yeah.
Right. I played it and I was like, oh, cool. I'm really glad I got to play Innis. That was a fun experience. I'd even play it again. Somebody else's copy at a convention or game night or something like that would not be opposed, but it's not one I'm seeking out to put on my shelf.
Yeah. Trois is the next game that is on the list, and this is it's not a super heavy game, but it is on the heavier side, and it really is kind of more on the dry side.
Yeah, it looks like it.
It looks like a dice game that's trying to be a non-dice game.
Yeah, yep.
And Doug, you and I played the Trois Dice version on BGA.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
And you just got to the point where you were just clicking on whatever.
Yes, I was. And I was winning for a while.
And you were, yeah. This is a game. The Trois Dice I have downstairs. It was one I was hoping to teach my wife, but it's still sitting on the table downstairs and hasn't come off the table to teach her. It's been buried by other stuff that I'd rather teach her that I haven't taught her. 1 to 4 players, 90 minutes, not a long game.
Yep. Number 107 on the overall, top games of all time. So pretty high up there. I know a lot of people like it. Honestly, this is just one of those games that looks super boring to me.
And then the last one on our list, number 15 of area majority, area influence games that we don't own is Kemet. And Kemet is kind of a little bit of a cheater because, Doug, you do own Kemet Blood and Sand, but it is still on your shelf of shame. So
it is. The rule book's gonna get read really soon, though. My goal is to have it played sometime in the next few months.
Excellent.
So it's been sitting on the shelf of shame for far too long.
Yeah.
And it's great production. And it actually seems like my kind of game. I'm excited to play this. So can't wait. But yeah, the original Kemet we don't own, Kemet Blood and Sand I do have. We'll get that one played soon.
Yeah. And it does look pretty cool. I mean, looking at Kemet does look a little dry, but the art on the board is, it's not dominant species.
Yeah. Yes. Ooh, that game looks rough. Yeah. And it might be a great game, but it sure doesn't look like it.
Absolutely. Yeah. But anyways, there are our top 15 area influence, area majority games that we don't own. And I mean, I guess if we came across a couple of these in a game swap, we would pick them up. But for the most part,
yeah,
there's a reason we don't own them.
Yep. I feel pretty comfortable with where I'm at for this. I do like making these episodes. I like recording these. I like looking at these lists. It's a really good opportunity to look at games that we don't have with a little bit of objectivity and kind of ask like, hey, are we missing out on something here? Or what is it that other people like about this that we maybe don't see? I like that thought process. I enjoy that quite a bit because whether we want to admit it or not, we all kind of judge some of these games based on things we've either heard or what we've seen of it, that kind of thing. And so I do think that it's important to go through and kind of be fair about maybe admitting some of our own biases with these. And also it puts some of these on my radar as games I would be willing to play. It's not like I'm writing these games off. As we've been doing these episodes, though, the games that we don't own, it's only put just a couple of them on my radar as games I'd like to purchase, but it has put a lot of them on that list of games. It's like, I would definitely play this if somebody taught it to me.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we can have some experiences with some of these games. I'm just not about to go out and buy them.
Yeah. And hopefully our next list, we don't have War of the Ring, Twilight Struggle, A Game of Thrones. Hopefully our next list is going to have some
diversity.
Variety. Yeah. Some diversity for sure.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up. Until next time.
We'll see you. Pakistan's threatening my borders. Sorry, RoboCop there. We'll see you at the game table.
Thank you for listening and being a part of Meeple Nation. If you would be so kind as to follow, subscribe, share, and rate or review this podcast, it really helps to spread the fun. You can be more involved in supporting the podcast by joining the nation at patreon.com/MeepleNation, or you can find a link at the top of our webpage, meeplenation.com. And while you're there, look at all our extra content. There are links to all our past episodes, a wide variety of blogs, pictures from our Instagram feed, and bios for all the hosts and our awesome bloggers. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all under Meeple Nation. If you would like to chat with the hosts or other members of the nation, you can join our Facebook group, Meeple Nation Off Air. We hope to see you again at a game night, a con, or maybe a suspense-driven evening of Werewolf. Thank you for listening and supporting Meeple Nation, and stay tuned for next week's episode.
Thank you so much for listening. We very much want to thank our patrons who help keep the podcast running. I personally want to thank my co-hosts for all the help they provide with both content here on the podcast, in addition to what we have available on our website. Without them, the podcast would not happen. If you too would like to support the podcast, you can join the nation at patreon.com/Meeple_nation. Or you can find a link to Patreon at the top of our webpage, meeplenation.com. If you have any questions, comments, or games you feel should be on our radar, you can always reach us at meeplenation@gmail.com. We can't wait to hear from you. I am grateful to Doug and Andy who helped me edit episodes, and I want to thank James and Kim Clark who do the editing on our blogs and on our webpage, which can be found at meeplenation.com. We want to thank Brain Detergent for our music. If you want to find more from him, you can follow his links that can be found on our webpage, or simply search for Brain Detergent on YouTube to find more of his tracks. Thank you again for listening and being part of the Meeple Nation community.